Morning guys, welcome back to the rod shop. Let's get this Cobra rod going next. Y'all stick around. Okay, last time we were talking about this rod was the design of it, where we went through picking out a blank, what I want to use it for, picking out grips, picking out this really cool Matagi painted reel seat, picked out guides, and some miscellaneous stuff. We got our end cap, I got my tip top, I've got my hook keeper, and my thread picked out. I put them in these little plastic containers. I bought them on Amazon, I'm sure, where I just, once I get my design put together, I keep all my little parts that I don't need right now in a spot where I don't lose them. Especially when you're talking about black on a black tabletop. Yeah, it just, things disappear. So, now, we've got all our parts picked out. I'm going to move these out of the way, don't need them right now. We don't need the guides at the moment. First thing I'm going to do, as you can see, I've got my stand out on my table here. We're going to do a little bit of cleanup on the blank. We got to get a sticker off that came manufacturer. We're going to do a quick cleanup, do a quick layout, spline it, and then we'll start gluing handle pieces together. So stick around. All right, so here we go. We're going to do this kind of real time. I got some things planned. Hopefully by next month we will be able to do some live broadcasting from the rod shop. Don't really have all that figured out yet, but I'm working on it. Thinking about doing some live tutorial stuff for you guys. I've had some requests for it. I'm just a little out of my wheelhouse as far as the technology, but I got a millennial son who's helping me with that. So hopefully we can do some live builds here in the rod shop with you guys. But in the meantime, I'm going to do this one kind of real time. This is going to be about a 4-hour build. Probably take 3 days, 4 hours over 3 days to get it built, just for cure times. I'm going to do a few things a little different than you've seen me do. This is going to be some high speed. Let's take some shortcuts, and since this one is for me, if it doesn't work out perfect, I'm not that upset about it. But the first thing you gotta do is get these labels off, and that one came off pretty quick. Gonna take a little bit of alcohol on a paper towel. I'm just gonna get the fingerprints. It looks like it's got some China marks on it. I want to get the residue from the glue off the blank, just where we don't have any imperfections from outside sources on the blank at all. That's nice and clean. Next step is going to be our layout. So what I'm going to do is, like I've showed you guys in the past, on my stand I have some witness marks. For a medium heavy to medium light bait, I like my triggers at about 11.5. So this is how we're going to set it up. We're going to do some quick layout on the blank here, get some tape marks on it, and then we'll go from there. So first things first, here is my rear grip layout, or my butt grip layout. So I want the butt grip to stop about right there, which I'm going to take some masking tape and mark that so I don't lose my pencil marks. Quick check on that. Perfect. Okay, now I want to mark the back end of my rear grip if my trigger is set at 11.5, which would be there and there. So I'm going to mark that with a pencil. I'm also going to mark the front of my rear grip and the end of my reel seat, just so I have a few witness marks. Okay, so let's put some tape on this important one here. So we're gonna mark that. Okay, so now we have the butt grip marked. And we have the rear grip marked. And that's just for gluing purposes for me. And then we have the front of the reel seat. Now this reel seat is a little different. The insert is the different part. So typically this is just a Fuji ACS exposed trigger seat. Been painted beautifully by Matagi. I got this at Voodoo Rods. Came with the 4K carbon fiber insert, which typically I would shorten it and just have it stop here. But I really like that look. So what I think I'm going to do is have the 4K insert not only show here, but at the end of the reel seat, and then I'll do an epoxy ramp and some thread work here to tie that into the blank. So I think I really like that. So one of the things I want to do is we're going to need to glue this insert in. So we're going to make some marks on the insert for where we're going to scratch it to glue it. So I'm going to want to scratch it up here on the end and then a little bit here in the middle just to give something for that carbon fiber to bite to with the glue. So what I'll take here is I've got a sponge, basically a file that's in a sponge. And I'm going to scratch this up just a little bit. Just to take the slick off of it. And then I'm going to scratch the end of it here. It's going to glue into the back of the reel seat. Okay, got that done. I'll slide it in here and see how it looks. That's going to work out perfect. Okay, that's ready for gluing up. Now, next thing we need to do is a spline of the blank. Now what I'll do is I'll take some masking tape and put out here way ahead of the reel seat so I can use this as a reference point. And I'll do a quick spline of the rod. So I'm putting quite a bit of pressure on the tip, got a good bend in it, and looking for its natural bend point, which is right there. I'll mark that. That will be my trigger. Check it. There we go. All right, I'm good with that. Now we have our spline. Now that we've got layout done, it's time to do a quick ream on the grips. Now, typically I wouldn't do a lot of dusty stuff in here. If these were cork or EVA, they just get kind of dusty. I wouldn't do them inside here, I'd take them outside, but these are some really nice foam pieces. It's a high density foam, but it's very lightweight with this carbon fiber on it. So I don't mind doing them in here. They don't make much dust, so let's do a quick ream and get these set up. And like I have my reamers. You guys know I've got a power reamer here. how that fits. That was perfect. It's a little loose. I built some arbors up to make that match. Bring the rears. There we go, same thing. I built some quick tape arbors to match that up. Perfect. Okay, now let me take the Spencer. I'm gonna put an arbor here. It's my front arbor on my reel, on my handle. Put one in the rear. Start checking these. That one's got a little wobble in the rear still. It's pretty snug in the front. There we go. Got just a hair of a wobble, which is fine. Alright, we're going to build a little bit of a rear arbor. And put one piece in here. Just tighten that up. One more roll back here. And there we go. Alright, let's mix up some 10-minute paste and we'll get this baby glued up. Y'all stick around. Okay, so I got the UB40 Quick Bond 10-minute paste. We're going to mix up a little bit. We don't need a lot. Here, mix it up out of the way. 2 popsicle sticks. Let's see, we're not going to need a lot of paste on this batch. That. About the same amount. A quick mix. Okay, looks like cotton candy. It's time to put it on. So what we're going to do, coat this pretty liberally. We're going to wind up pushing most of it back off. But I want to make sure I've got a nice coat all the way around. Okay, now we're going to turn this as we push. Right right up to the tip there. Take this extra off. Just a little bit more. A little bit of alcohol. And clean this up. There we go. That one's done. Now we'll get this rear grip done. Again, we're going to coat it pretty liberally from the arbor to the rear. Again, most of this we're wind up pushing off and have to clean up, but I want a good solid bond here. So we'll spin this back. And there we go. Mark just to keep track of my layout for now. I'm going to peel this off. I'll take these little squares that I cut. Move this out of the way for now. Excess residue off of there. Alright, clock starts ticking on that for being cured up in 10 minutes. While we're waiting on that, we're going to glue up the insert into the reel seat. I'm going to do just a little bit of glue paste inside here because that's going to build up and it's going to be in the crack here. We're going to want to clean that. I'm going to do some here, and I'm also going to do some paste inside here to pick up the insert and make sure I get a good coat between the outside of the insert and the inside of the reel seat. So we'll get busy on that. I'm going to put just a little bit on the outside here as that gets sucked in. And I'm going to put just the tiniest bit in here. Basically wipe it on, wipe it off so that it will bind to the inside of the reel seat. So we're going to twist. That's about where I want it there. Now let's get this cleaned up. When you're doing this kind of work, you don't want to put gloves on because you want to know if you have sticky on your hands, so you can make sure you don't leave it a residue anywhere you don't want it. So I always do this with bare hands just so I can tell when I when I put sticky somewhere I didn't want sticky to be. Now I'm going to do one other thing, and I'm going to clean up the inside of the insert like that, just so I make sure when I go to mount the reel seat that it's going to be not a problem with that extra epoxy. Okay, I'll finish cleaning that up. We'll give it about 10 minutes to set. We'll come back and finish this handle assembly. Y'all stick around. Okay, been about 10 minutes. The original paste that I made up is pretty tacky. I slid the reel seat on, but there's a little bit of glue residue on the inside that I was concerned about, and what we're going to need to do is just make sure that if we get any of this glue residue on the outside of the reel seat area, that we get it wiped off immediately. The rear grip's pretty stable. I'm just got to be very careful with it. So what I want to do now is I want to build an arbor right out front here. So I'm going to mark the outside of my reel seat with pencil. I'm going to very carefully slide this back. You can see how it's leaving some glue residue. Been better if I'd have waited, but we're going to try to get this done quickly. So I'm going to build an arbor right here in front where that insert stops. You see how we got a little residue right there. That was my primary concern about doing this quickly, but trying to save some time on this build. Alright, I'm going to need a couple more wraps to center that properly. I'll pull this back off. Add 2 more wraps to it. Slide this back again. Alright, we've got just a hair of a wiggle. Still leaving a little residue. Okay, now I'm going to give that one more wrap, and I'm going to build an intermediate arbor. I'll do one more wrap here just to tighten that front up. I'm going to do an intermediate arbor here to hold some of the epoxy. There we go, that's nice and tight. Still dropping a little residue. Alright, now it's time to mix up another batch of 10-minute epoxy. And get this reel seat glued in place. Alright, well, I think we lost the overhead camera for a minute, but I think I got it running again. I told you guys in the past. The rod building is fun for me. The camera stuff can be a challenge at times. It has a mind of its own. So we're ready. We've got our arbors built. I'm going to mix up this second batch of 10-minute epoxy to get the reel seat set. Nice cotton candy look to it. Okay, let's get this baby glued up. Alright, so we got to pay attention to where our spline is. It's here. It's going to be the top, be the trigger. Slide this off one more time. And now I'm going to plenty of epoxy in here. I want to coat the arbor really well. and in front of this front arbor. Now on the back, there's a cavity, obviously, inside the reel seat that we want to push all this excess epoxy up into that cavity and have it be solid. That's what gives you a really solid feel in your hand for the reel seat, and we get a lot of vibration transmitted through from the blank to the epoxy into the reel seat into the palm of your hand. So I want to get this cavity here is what is going to really need to be filled up. Get a thin coat on this foam. What will happen as we start turning this blank and sliding it over the arbor is just going to pick up all this excess epoxy and push it to the rear to help us fill this cavity. And the trick is to get it to fill nice and evenly without having a lot of extra. And there you go, you start to see it starting to fill that cavity now, and as I push it up on the tenon, it's going to push the extra out, and I'm not going to push that all the way up. I'm going to keep turning it, get it evenly spread. I'm going to back it off a little bit to pull some of that excess out of there, just to make it easier to clean when we've made it up to the rear grip. I'm going to peel some of this off. And we're going to go back to turning it. Starting to seat up. Now I want to get all that wiped out of there. Okay. Clean that up and then I'll push it tight again. Alright, we're going to make this up tight. Pushed out a little more, and we'll clean that up. And get this clean in front of the reel seat. And that excess that we had in front of the arbor. And now we want to make sure the trigger is on the spline. Good. I'm going to keep cleaning this residue off. Check that trigger one more time. Looks good. You want to look in this crack here to make sure you don't have any opaque looking material, which that's going to be your paste, because you're going to want that clean. We're going to do a thin coat of epoxy over these carbon fiber grips. Going to leave a little texture to them, but it's going to protect them, and it makes a really nice shiny look, which I like on my rod. So we're going to clean this up one more time. Check these, make sure we've got everything clean, and then we'll give it another 10 minutes and we'll be back, and I'll start doing an under wrap and some accent wraps so we can get the first coat of epoxy on here within the hour. So y'all stick around. Okay, so while I was getting ready to move it over to my wrapper, I decided I'm gonna go ahead and balance this rod and save myself a step. Right now, the balance point on this rod is about 4 inches in front of the reel seat. Now what I'm going to do is I've got some old lead here, and I'm going to bury a 1/2 ounce of lead into the butt grip of this rod so it's not quite as tip heavy. I'm going to use very light weights, very light baits. I want it to be light in my hand. I'm going to put a BFS reel on it, so the whole thing is going to be light. But one of the things that will wear you out, and not so much with a lightweight rod, but it still is noticeable, is be very tip heavy. So what I always do with my personal rods and most of my client rods is I balance them. And I know from experience that if I want to move that balance point back closer to the front of the reel seat, which is where you will feel the weight, I need to bury some weight. So I'm going to take these 2/4 ounce lead weights. I'm going to bury them in the butt of the rod, put the butt cap on it. Everything's going to be epoxied in place. We'll do that next and let this cure for a few minutes before we set it up in the wrapper. So here we go. One more time. If I'd have been planning a little further ahead, I would have mixed up extra and done this when I set the reel seat, but I didn't want to be in a rush because I definitely want to make sure I get these edges clean for the reel seat. So I'm going to mix up a little bit more epoxy. Probably too much epoxy, but I'd rather have a little extra. Now I'm going to make myself a little tape ball so I can stuff it in ahead of the weights, get everything to hold. I'm just going to stuff that in with my pick. Okay, it's about the right size. And put a little epoxy on it inside. I'm going to stuff this tape ball in. Okay. Now, I'm going to take my first weight. Make sure I got a clean hand here on the left side. Push that tape ball in with some epoxy. I'm going to stuff my first weight in. Alright, put a little more epoxy in it. I'm going to stuff my second weight in there. Alright, that's getting pretty snug in there now. I'm going to put just a little bit of epoxy on this tenon because most of this is going to get pushed off, but we want it wet with epoxy. Okay, now I'm going to take my butt cap and I'm going to make sure I've got the inside of the rubber cap coated heavily with epoxy. Now this won't get pushed out, it'll get pushed into the blank and I'll secure up against that weight and the butt of the blank. Got just a little bit on the outside edge here. I have some I'm going to have to clean off, but it's not going to be bad. Okay, now we're just going to twist and shove it on there. Now, this is airtight, and so it's going to want to push the air out. And push itself back off. So let's get this cleaned up. Again, we're going to have to push that up tight. And it's going to keep trying to push itself back off because we got air trapped in it, which is fine. So you got to keep working it out. Get all that excess air out of there. Get in there. The last little bit of it coming out. Alright, we've got that clean. And the last thing I'll do is take a little masking tape and keep it from trying to slide off again. Now I'll stand it up. We'll let it cure for 10 or 15 minutes. We'll come back and we'll start with the under wrap and get some of the beginning of the thread work done. We'll see you in a minute. Well, we're back. While you guys were away, I went ahead and checked it up here in my Alps Power Wrapper. Spent about 30-40 minutes. I went ahead and got some lunch. We got a little bit of prep work to do because we're going to do an under wrap in this area where we're going to put the hook keeper as a protective measure for the blank. We're going to do an accent wrap up here in front of the carbon fiber insert. But I want to do a little bit of prep work here, masking some of this off. So when it's time to do epoxy here in a few minutes, we are ready. So I'm going to start just masking this rubber piece off because I'm going to put a thin coat of epoxy over this unfinished carbon fiber just to protect it. You'll still feel the texture, but you won't, it'll be a little slicker than just a rough texture. And that's really all it takes. Fold that back out of the way, like so. We're going to need another piece up here where the real seed is. You can do the same thing. I don't have to be so precise with the brush work when it comes to doing this piece of epoxy. Allow me to make a little bit of a mistake and have it not be catastrophic. Okay. That will get us ready. So we're going to just a little bit of basic thread work here. I'm going to do an under wrap just to protect the blank. I'm going to do an accent wrap, and then we're going to get busy with a little bit of epoxy. First coat on here, first coat here, first coat here, and then we'll let it cure for 4 or 5 hours before we do anything else to it. So y'all stick around. Okay, I'm going to use this black metallic, at least for the accent pieces here. I'm going to start. I'm just going to pin this up here out of the way for now. I'm going to put some glasses on so I can see what I'm doing. This is really thin thread, and black on black on black is tough to see, even with eyes. I'm going to go into power wrap mode here. Well, I don't like that at all. This thread, the metallic thread, is coming apart. I'm going to start that over again. Well, I didn't like the way that was looking at all. That metallic black was having some issues. Getting close to the end of the spool anyway. So I went to a different color black. It's non-metallic. It's got a bit of a sheen to it, but it's just a D-size nylon thread. So I'm going to try this again. Okay, get this burnished out. Okay, now we'll do the accent wrap here at the end. Okay, there we go. Now we're ready for the first bit of epoxy work. I'll get set up and we'll be right back. Okay, typically it's not that important that your blank be absolutely level, but in this case, the way I'm going to epoxy over this carbon fiber is helpful. So I've got a torpedo level. It's actually got a groove in the bottom of it. I think I picked this up at Harbor Freight, but it makes it really easy to sit it on top of your blanket. Stays where it belongs while you adjust everything in your stand. So we've got it level. We've got our brush. I want to make sure that I don't have any loose fibers, loose hairs. I'd cut them out of the way if I do. That one's good. We're going to mix up 3 milliliters of each of the Diamond 2 finish, and then we're going to put a thin coat of epoxy. So stick around. Alright, there's 3 minutes of mixing on the Diamond 2 finish. First thing I'm going to do is, I know I've got labels that are coming out here about 5 inches. I'm going to brush a band here on the outside as my end point. Then we'll start coating my threads and my carbon fiber, and then we'll do epoxy ramps. So here we go. I'm going to I got it locked down in the wrapper, but I'm going to put it in freewheel mode, so I can control it just by hand here. Alright, so this should be about the end of my labels. Now I'll get this coated, and then I'm going to scrub most of this back off. This blank's got a little bit of a texture to it, and all I'm trying to do is put a thin enough coat so the labels don't pick up the texture from underneath, and you can see that through the label sometimes. So I'm just going to get a heavy coat on this. You can see it's dripping off, not a big deal. All I'm going to do is brush it on out. Make sure I got plenty of epoxy on it to start with. We're going to wind up scraping most of this back off. Just making sure I've got a good even coat all the way down the blank where my label's going to go. Just moving it down the rod so I don't waste any epoxy. Just going to soak in this carbon fiber quite a bit. So I'm not too worried about the label area at the moment. We're going to throw some heat on that in a little bit anyway, just to get it to really flatten out. Same thing here with the with the carbon fibers. I just want to soak it. Get it spread evenly. And I'm going to be careful painting up next to my masking tape because I don't want to pile a bunch of epoxy up under the edge of that masking tape. Alright, now I'm going to brush this out. And I'm going to throw the heat gun on this in a minute to get it all to level perfectly. Okay, now we're going to cover. Now we're going to get on the thread and the end wrap. Same deal. A lot of epoxy on it. We're going to scrape it back off. Alright, now just to finish this last piece of carbon fiber. I'm going to scrape it off. Now, I'll set this aside. I'll put it into dry mode on the dryer here. And I'm going to throw some heat on it. And how I do that is a heat gun, and I always keep my hand behind where I'm putting the heat so I know exactly how much heat I'm putting on the blank. Okay, well, looks pretty good. Got a little bubble or two in it here. I'll keep playing with it as it starts to cure, but that's it for day one. We started from scratch. Got a handle set built. I started this about 11:30. It's now a little after 2 o'clock. We had a couple of breaks of 10 or 15 minutes to let the 10-minute epoxy cure. I took a break for lunch, and I got quite a bit of work done here in a little under 3 hours. So next time we come back, we'll do the layout and get some guides on, get the labels going, and get another coat of epoxy on. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.